2010 AP Micro FRQ number 3. This is a externality question. Let's take a look at it, see if we can answer it. The graph above shows the perfectly competitive market for hard candies and Country Alpha. In the graph, the letters correspond to points. MPC denotes marginal private cost, MSB marginal social benefit. Using the labeling on the graph, identify each of the following at the market equilibrium. So before we jump into this, if you read B here, it says that there is a production of each unit of candy creates a negative externality. So as soon as they know, as soon as I know, it's a negative production externality. I know how to draw this graph, and I know what it's going to look like. Negative always implies that we want less of this good. Production always implies there's two cost curves, right? So I'm going to draw two cost curves, one supply or one demand curve. This is demand. If there's only one curve, it has to be both. So it's our marginal social benefit. It's also our marginal personal benefit, right? We know we want less of this good, so we know our deadweight loss triangle will point to the left. This is our quantity of the market, and this is our deadweight loss triangle pointing to the left. Your deadweight loss triangle, if it's a negative, always points left. Your deadweight loss triangle also points to your society, or we could say your marginal social society cost. Here's your marginal personal cost. I know where personal cost and personal benefit come together. That's the market price. So let's call it PM and QM, right? So here's our deadweight loss. Here's the quantity by the market. Now, the fix for a negative externality is always a tax. We just know that. So with the tax, it would raise the price. Price would go up to here. And think about this. As I produce more of this or less of this good, sorry, because it's a negative, as I produce less, look what's happening to the deadweight loss. It's getting smaller and smaller until I get to that point right there, and that is my social optimal quantity. So this is sort of how we draw these. What I find mostly that people miss these questions on is they confuse how to draw this. All right. Again, the way they're going to ask this with a lot of multiple choice questions is, does the market overproduce or underproduce this good? Right? If it's a negative, the market always overproduces. There's a reason why it's called market failure, right? It is overproducing this good. Is the price too high or too low by the market? And obviously, there's too much of this good. The social optimal quantities to the left, they want less, so the price must have been too low. And we raise the price so that there's less produced. All right, but in this situation, we know this is our MPC. This is kind of the same thing we've got here. It's just a little more detailed on our side. Here's our marginal social benefit, but we also know this is our private benefit. Again, where private benefit and private cost come together, that would be our market quantity and our price of our market, P3. All right. So we know that this is all consumer surplus and this is all producer surplus. Consumer surplus is everything above the price, but below the demand curve. And producer surplus is everything below the price, but above the supply curve. Just a quick thing to keep in your head, right? So knowing where these consumer and producer surpluses is. So this looks like P3JM. P3JM, I like it. P3P1M. P3P1M. I think that's right. Now go back to B. Assume that production of each unit of candy creates a negative externality. Production, two cost curves, equal to P5 minus P2. Using the labeling of the graph, identify the social optimal quantity. Now again, we've done it here. We just need to show it on this graph. So let's get rid of, we don't really need this. They're telling us the amount of the externality, right? So the amount of the externality is this distance here. This could be confusing, but just understand that what they're showing you is this is your marginal social cost. This is your marginal personal cost. Society's costs are greater than personal cost. Therefore, society is being harmed. We need to tax this good at that sort of amount of taxation. That vertical distance right there is the amount of tax that we should supposedly apply to this market. The social optimal would be right there, though. That's exactly what's going on. Is Q1 would be our social optimal quantity. Assume that the government now imposes, and this is confused to me earlier when I was reading this, assume the government, I usually can do most FRQs right off because I've done them quite a bit. This one I haven't seen in a while. After the government imposes the tax to correct for the negative externality, label the graph, show, etc., etc., consumer surplus, deadweight loss. So we know that this is our new price, right? Look over here. This is our new price. We could see the price needs to go up. We could see this was our old market price. This is our new price. Price goes up because they tax it, and obviously, therefore, quantity would fall. There you go. So this triangle right here would be our consumer surplus. Now everything above the new price, everything below the demand curve. So P5JK, I think that's right, P5JK. Deadweight loss. Now understand that we are now at the social optimal quantity. Understand that originally this was the deadweight loss when the market was producing this good. As they produce less, look what's happening to our deadweight loss. Remember now, all of that triangle would have been deadweight loss. So as we produce less, our deadweight loss gets smaller and smaller and smaller until we are at the social optimal quantity. So there's no deadweight loss. Tricky, tricky. All right, guys. Thanks. Be safe. Take care. Goodbye.